You all know who this guy is, right? I mean, you read the title, you clicked on the video, you know his deal. He's super strong, but always weaker than whoever he's fighting. He can't die, but he dies in every other episode. And he's the leader of the Guardians of the Globe, except he doesn't have any actual qualities a leader needs. He's the Immortal, and he's the community's punching bag. People joke about him beating the big bads of this series because it's so ridiculous to think he even has a chance. He's put in the same category as characters like Paul and Eve's dad. Aside from that, he's almost universally hated as a character, and people love seeing him lose, which is nice for them since he loses so often. But why? Why does the community like every other Guardian of the Globe except him? Why does this character get so much hate? Well, in order to answer that question, we need to go back to a simpler time. Before the brain rot, before the bad animation, before the Immortal was even hated. We need to go back to Season 1. Season 1 is the Immortal at his absolute peak. He only really appears in 2 episodes, but he makes the most of his screen time. His first scene shows everything you need to know about him. He's the leader of the Guardians, he's strong enough to both fight the Maulers and save lives at the same time. He's a little distrusting of Omni-Man. It's all there from the start. Later on, in the fight against Omni-Man, he's clearly shown to be more important than the others. He's the one asking, "Why have you done this?" And he's the last one alive at the end, still asking, "Why? Why?" Episode 2 gives the audience a little hint that he could return, but for the time being, he's dead. Season 1 has a lot of things it needs to do, so it makes sense that it can't dive too deep into the character of someone who's going to be dead for most of the season. Episode 7 is where things really get interesting. To refresh your memory, the Mauler twins have been spending the rest of the season breaking out of jail and stealing the Immortal's corpse in order to revive and control him using a collar. And I know it's been memed to death, I know how it ends up going, but the Immortal waking up is still such a cool scene. Everything about it just works so well. The flashbacks of his previous lives, the brilliant performance by Ross Marquand, how absolutely terrified the Maulers are, it all lets the audience know that shit is about to go down. And he does not disappoint. Keep in mind, up to this point, Omni-Man has been practically house blows up, unfazed. 3 Reanimen on him at once, struggles for a bit, but he comes out unscathed. The hammer of God hits him twice, minor inconvenience. The only person able to do any real damage to him was, you guessed it, the Immortal. From the moment he arrives, he's given Nolan the business. He comes out looking worse from each exchange, but he's still making Omni-Man bleed. That's more than Mark does in episode 8. At this point, he is the strongest hero left on Earth. And even when he goes down, he doesn't go down easy. Even while being impaled through the torso, bleeding to death, he keeps fighting. It doesn't matter that he's going to lose, he's going to go down swinging, or gouging in this case. It's a great end to a great fight, and it perfectly sets up Nolan fully taking the mask off. Mark sees his father with bloodshot eyes killing one of Earth's greatest heroes. Gotta give props to Honest Abe for helping Omni-Man's appearance match his intentions. So what have we learned about the Immortal in this first season? Well, he's a respected leader, a capable fighter, and one of the strongest heroes at Earth's disposal. He can fight the strongest supervillains with relative ease, and can do it while saving any civilians in danger. He's a pretty good judge of character, since he never fully trusted Nolan. He's pretty composed most of the time, unless he's, watching his friends die in front of him, or recovering from being dead. But most importantly, he's competent, not only when fighting, but also when strategizing. He's been a hero since the 1930s, and he's been a leader even longer than that, so he knows what he's doing. So my question is this. Who the hell killed this Immortal, and who's this guy wearing his skin? Season 2 opens on a bad omen of things to come for our good friend Mr. Abraham the Immortal Lincoln. He's fighting Invincible, who's clearly not going all out. This is already weird since Immortal was definitely stronger than Mark last season, but whatever, it's not like he's outright losing or anything. That would be embarrassing. Then Omni-Man shows up, Immortal gets a nice little combo, Omni-Man reminds him that this isn't the training room in Invincible versus, and he's dead. And not just Immortal dead, like fully dead. Mark explodes his head and says,
"Immortal your way out of that,"
to tell the audience that Big Eye is down for good here. Then Omni-Man comments on how Immortal was leading them away from the Resistance's secret base, showing that Immortal was fighting smart. It's not the greatest look for him, but it could be a lot worse. Sure, he lost to Omni-Man way faster here, and he barely hurt Invincible, but it's the season premiere, they gotta move pretty fast. And plus, this is an alternate universe, so maybe these versions of Mark are stronger or something, whatever. Later in the episode, Cecil puts Immortal in charge of the new Guardians. He's led them before, he's really strong, and Robot's been fucking things up lately, so it makes sense. What doesn't make sense is how much of an asshole Immortal is here. This kind of becomes baked into his character later, but it was not a thing in Season 1. Sure, he would get pissed at times, but that was when he was in a life or death situation where his friends were either dying or dead. Even in the Adam Eve special, he talks pretty casually with Nolan and the Guardians despite being in the middle of a serious battle. Now he's just an asshole for no reason. It's practically character assassination, and it serves no real purpose than to give the other characters someone to hate. Later on, Immortal talks to Mark after the fight with Angstrom and the Maulers. He's apparently suspicious of Mark, and he vows to keep an eye on him, which actually makes sense. He never fully trusted Nolan, but he was still friends with him, which led to his whole team dying. He doesn't want to make that same mistake again. The problem is it's never followed up at all. There's never a point where Immortal actually watches Mark. It's all just empty threats so that Immortal can look like more of an asshole. All in all, not a great opening for our boy, but it only gets worse from here. In episode 2, the Guardians are all pissed about Immortal's training being too hard. Is this meant to show that the new Guardians aren't as tough as the old ones and that they need to improve, which was a big theme in Season 1? No, it's meant to show that the Immortal is an asshole who's pushing them too hard. Robot specifically calls him out on making Monster Girl transform. Whether or not the characters are right is irrelevant. The scene is made to show that the Immortal is a bad leader. He doesn't even explain himself in these scenes, he just tells everyone else to get bent because he's the boss. But the shower scene is even worse. Rex goes in to take a shower after training, hears who he thinks is Duplicate, and sees that Immortal and Kate have been going to pound town on each other. This is the start of the worst couple in the entire show, Duplimortal. They don't work for 3 main reasons. 1, the characters themselves aren't very well liked in the fan base. 2, the characters are very different from each other, so it's hard to believe that they love each other, especially after so little time. And 3, they never fucking talk to each other! Seriously, I had to double check for the sake of this video, and there are only 2 times in the entire series thus far where the Immortal and Duplicate have a one-on-one conversation, when she reveals she's not dead and when Immortal retires. Hell, even that last one has Donald right there, so that might not even count. Every other relationship in this show has at least 3 scenes where the couple just enjoys each other's company, but with these 2, we have to be told why they'd even bond in the first place. Kate explains to the audience, I mean Rex, that since both of them have died before, they can relate to each other on a level no one else can. That's not enough to build a relationship on. I can't start a family with some random chick on the street just because we're both on Fraud Watch. It's a good start, give me more! It also just does both of the characters a disservice in general. It makes Kate's decision to stay with the Guardians later on less like an actual decision and more like not wanting to upset her fuck buddy. And it's not exactly a good look for the millennia-old Immortal to be having sex with someone who just came off the teen team. I usually don't care about age gaps, but come on, dude. The next time we see the Immortal is episode 5, where he, along with every other hero on the planet, fights Omnipotus. Off-screen. This is one of the Immortal's 4, count 'em, 4 wins in the entire series, and it's off-screen. Later on, in the same episode, he leads the powerful Guardians to go fight the Sequids, which culminates in the exact moment the writers let the audience know that the Immortal is a total bitch now. Robot builds a device that can remove the Sequids from the host, Russ Livingston, and Immortal picks it up since, time is of the essence. Invincible, however, realizes that it's his name in the title of the show and knocks it out of the Immortal's hand. Immortal, quite reasonably for once, is mad at Mark for jeopardizing the mission, but Mark responds by holding him against the spaceship walls like he's putting a toddler in timeout and says that he's stronger than him and faster than him and gets more bitches and stacks more paper than him. Which would make sense, but he's already wasting time by arguing about it, so it kind of makes the point mute. Wait, when did Invincible get stronger than the Immortal? We saw in Season 1 that Immortal was stronger, he could stagger Omni-Man and make him bleed while Mark's full-force punches did nothing. I know he's gotten stronger since then, but he shouldn't be that much stronger. Remember, this is before Cecil hooked him up to his training regimen we see in Season 3, and Season 2 takes place within the same school year as Season 1. Even if Mark somehow got stronger than Immortal by this point, neither character should know it, and it shouldn't be treated as a blatant fact like it is in this episode. But I digress. Immortal covers Mark, and Invincible saves the day! Yay! On the ride home, Immortal tells Mark,
"Good work,"
to show that he's not pissed at him anymore. It sucks because it's so close to being a good arc for his character. He struggles to find his place now that he's not the strongest hero anymore, but he learns to trust others to do the things he can't do, which makes him a better leader. The problem is, of course, that he doesn't actually start liking Mark or trusting him, but we'll get to that later. Episode 6 isn't much better for him. He gets back to Earth only to discover that Duplicate died. Of course, being a man who's seen countless lovers die over his centuries of life, and someone who had just had his closest friends die less than a year ago, Immortal takes this super well. Just kidding, he yells at his boss for suggesting that he takes time off. I've never seen someone so mad about getting to take a vacation. Kate's death is now used as justification for why he's so mad, but he's been about as mad as he's been the entire rest of the season anyway, so it's not much of a difference. He overhears that there's a strong alien in Earth's atmosphere and immediately assumes it's Omni-Man and goes to fight him. I mean, we've already seen this man get his ass kicked by Omni-Man 3 separate times, but there's something to be said about his dedication. Call him weak all you want, but you can't call him a quitter. Until about 5 minutes later. He goes back to space, sees that Alan is not, in fact, Omni-Man, then starts fighting him anyway because he's a prick. Alan doesn't even try, Immortal does no real damage to him, and Mark tells him to fuck off. Congratulations, Immortal. Now you've been bitched around by Mark for 2 consecutive episodes. He goes back and tells Cecil that he's retiring. Cecil talks him into just an extended vacation like he suggested earlier, and now Immortal is off the team. Keep in mind, this is all because of a girl he hasn't even talked to one-on-one yet. It's so weird that the original Guardians are never even brought up in these conversations. Only Kate. You'd think he'd be more upset about his friends that he's known for 20 years being slaughtered because he wasn't strong enough to save or even avenge them, but I guess the Duplicate is just that good. In the finale, we see him sulking in his cabin in the mountains, which I actually like. It shows a side of Immortal's personality that the rest of the show doesn't give us. The fact that his first instinct after leaving the Guardians is to go to an isolated cabin where no one would follow him says a lot about how he's feeling. He's lonely, but he chooses to stay that way, too scared of loss to open up to anyone else. It's genuinely great work and one of his best moments this season. It doesn't matter at all because he finds out Kate's still alive and instantly rejoins the Guardians, because otherwise we'd have to give the Immortal actual character development, and we can't have that now, can we? So what went wrong this season? Everything. Immortal used to be strong, now he's weak. He used to be a good leader, now he's hated by everyone else on the team except for the one guy who was on his previous team. He used to be pretty chill, now he's a raging asshole all the time who goes into baby fits anytime he doesn't get what he wants. And before anyone says, actually, that's how he was in the comics, I don't care how he was in the comics. Robert Kirkman said that the show gave him the opportunity to fix his mistakes with the comics, and he significantly changed so many other characters to make them better than their comic counterparts. I'd rather the Immortal be a better character than be more comic accurate. But hey, the whole reason he was an asshole here is because he couldn't deal with death. And now that Kate's back, the problem is solved, and he'll be a good character. I can't wait for him to turn it around and become the cool addition to the cast that he was always meant to be. Now, what's the title of that next segment? Oh. The first time we see Immortal in Season 3 is in Episode 1, where he flies Kate in to stop Multipol from killing Rex. How did either of them know that Multipol was going to be there? The episode makes it seem like Kate and Paul haven't talked in a long time, so she wouldn't know. Cecil didn't even know Paul was there, and even if he did, why would he tell the guy on vacation and the girl who he doesn't know is alive? The answer, of course, to that question is fuck you. We needed Immortal in this scene so that Rex could give him the finger. That's literally the only reason he's here. He contributes nothing to the conversation other than white knighting for Kate.
It was her decision.
Oh, and this.
Those guys got away with the Declaration of Independence.
What?
Not even 15 minutes into the first episode of the season, and he's already getting shit on. At least it took longer than Season 2. Later on, he gets captured, off-screen, mind you, by Doc Seismic, along with every other hero on Earth. This is a new low. Immortal can no longer beat Doc fucking Seismic. Invincible was kicking this guy's ass in Season 1. I know that Seismic is a little more powerful now, and he has spider dudes that are as strong as Viltrumites, so it's less embarrassing, but that's still another loss for the Big Eye, and this time it's to a literal fodder villain. He does something rash and stupid, again. He gets saved by actual competent heroes, again. And he's mysteriously absent from Guardians HQ when Mark flies in there the same episode. Fuck! When Mark flies in there the next episode. He's one of only 3 missing here. The others being Duplicate and Black Samson. I suppose they were having a 3-way somewhere. He has the brilliant idea to have the Guardians themselves mop up the HQ after the fight with the Reanimen, which directly leads the team to questioning why they should even work for Cecil. And while Black Samson makes actual arguments and articulates why he agrees with Cecil, Immortal has the audacity to say that Cecil's gone soft on Mark. What are you talking about, man? Cecil nearly killed him. And then, when that rousing speech isn't enough to get his team to shut up, he straight up tells them to leave. Why is he still allowed to be in charge after this? Robot hesitates once, which has no lasting consequences, and Cecil gives him the boot. Immortal literally makes over half the team quit, and Cecil doesn't even care. And let's look at who quits, who stays, and why. Rex, Ray, and Monster Girl quit because they feel like they're being treated like disposable tools instead of people. That makes sense. All of them have been almost killed fighting bad guys, and their opinions are almost always ignored. Bulletproof leaves because he can't work for someone he doesn't trust. Alright, that's a pretty good reason. If Cecil went after Mark, there's a good reason to believe that he'll go after Bulletproof next if he doesn't feel like Mr. Black and Yellow is being loyal enough. Robot leaves because he needs to stay on Invincible's good side. Kind of a dick move, and he's probably just wanting to stay close to Monster Girl, but it does make sense to not want to piss off the most powerful guy on the planet. Immortal stays because he's so far up his own ass he thinks the sky is brown, Kate stays because she's Immortal's one-woman harem, Black Samson stays because he wasn't there when the Reanimen attacked and he still trusts Cecil, and Shapesmith stays because he's an idiot. One side is clearly in the right here, and it's not the side where 3 out of 4 members weren't there for the inciting incident. It's just upsetting how hard the show works to make Cecil seem more reasonable than in the comics, to the point where I mostly agree with him, only for Immortal to still be so obviously wrong. Oh well, at least he hasn't lost a fight yet. Well, at least he hasn't lost a fight on screen yet. After adding Darkwing II to the team, next time we see Immortal is when he and the rest of the Guardians fight the Mauler twins. Okay, this should be a nice dub for him, and Lord knows he needs it. He's already beaten the Maulers in Season 1, and he's shown to be a stronger and better fighter than them, so this should be a wash. What do you mean they lose? What do you mean they lose in 2 minutes? Every episode hits a new low. They're stronger because they have the brain gun. Well, why does every other character in the show get stronger except for the Immortal? Why does he, of all characters, have to get power crept? And he loses in 2 minutes? Pack it up, brother, you're done. Maybe they'd stand a chance if they still had someone who could turn really small to avoid being shot, or someone who had several suits of armor without brains, or hell, even a guy who could blow up the gun from a distance. But no, Immortal made sure that wouldn't happen. By the way, if you count the argument in episode 2, he's lost a fight, physical or verbal, in every episode of the season so far. This is where people started calling him Fraud Mortal, and I gotta say, it's a pretty accurate name. Episode 4 is perhaps the Immortal's most interesting role. Instead of being a stuck-up asshole, he's a crazy dictator who doesn't care about protecting people anymore. On top of being an interesting plot idea, it also lets us see more of the Immortal's character than usual. He typically portrays himself as very secure in his beliefs and abilities, but here we can see that he hates the responsibility of leadership. He can't take it after centuries of being king, so he just starts killing people so that the Mark from his timeline comes back to kill him. He feels inferior to Viltrumites.
I'm not a Viltrumite! You shouldn't have left me in charge!
He doesn't even care about his wives anymore, he just wants it all to end. Once again, Ross Marquand gives a great performance here. He manages to sound both psychotically insane and tired of living at the same time. It's one of the most underrated performances in the show, in my opinion. Seriously, go back and listen to it again. It's phenomenal. Kinda doesn't make sense why he doesn't just quit or kill himself, but I guess he's already crazy, so it's not much of a stretch to buy that he thinks he can't. He has a little fight with Mark, and this time I actually believe that Immortal loses here. Mark's been training with Cecil and got way stronger, while this Immortal has just been sitting around ordering robots to kill people. I won't hold it against the guy for losing here. Still putting it on the tally, though. Overall, a great episode that adds a lot of extra complexity to what's been a pretty one-note character thus far. It just has one little small problem. It doesn't matter. None of this interesting character analysis ends up affecting the present Immortal because he doesn't know about it. Invincible never tells him. In fact, Invincible never talks to the Immortal for the rest of the series as of Season 4, so it doesn't affect how they interact either. It's all just wasted potential in the end, which is so sad to see. This could have been the turning point for Immortal's perception among the fanbase, but the show refuses to link up the two versions of the character. Immortal isn't in episode 5, and he only makes a cameo in episode 6, but episode 7, oh boy, episode 7. To jog your noggin, Ekstrom Levy unleashes a bunch of alternate versions of Invincible across the world to make Earth hate the original, and pretty much every hero on the planet is called to stop them. Naturally, the Guardians are going to be pretty important here, since they're like the 5th strongest thing that Earth has. So how many variants did they kill? Oh, just one? Well, at least it was a good showing, right?
I like it, cut G.
Robert, listen to me. What is your problem with this character? You have 20 of those fuckers running around, and you couldn't have the Immortal beat one of them? Hell, you couldn't have his entire team beat one of them? They have to cheese it by sacrificing a dude to the Shadow Realm to stop just one of them? And not just that, but this variant in particular isn't even trying. He locks in and the Immortal dies in literally 10 seconds, I counted. You showed him winning earlier, why did you rewrite him to be doing nothing within the same episode? And using his head to kill Duplicate is next level BM. Let me remind you all that since Immortal dies here, he had a worse performance than everyone who ended up living the Invincible War. Donald did better than the Immortal. Wolfman did better than the Immortal. Big Mildew and Business Baby did better than the Immortal. It's at a point where it has to be intentional. There's no way the writers like this character. He is a permanent member of Fraud Watch, and this moment solidifies it. I think it's time, dear viewer, that I tell you a secret. One of my deepest, darkest sins, one that I've only told trusted friends of many years, and even then it nearly costed me their friendship. The truth is, I was an Immortal fan. I saw him fight Omni-Man in Season 1 and thought he was the coolest guy to ever exist. I couldn't even wait for the next season to come out. I spoiled myself and watched this video just so I could see what happened to him. I heard that he was a douchebag in the comics, but hey, they already changed so much about the show. His fight against Omni-Man was close both times, whereas in the comics he just gets one shot twice. Surely they're going to make him better. I then proceeded to watch my favorite character, my Season 1 GOAT, lose every fight, every argument, every opportunity to not suck, while having to defend him from every deserved criticism he got. I vividly remember going to bed the night before Season 3 Episode 7 premiered. I had an exam and a speech class the next day, but I didn't care about that. I'm not as religious as I'd like to be, but I always pray every night. And that night I said, Lord, please let Immortal kill one of those variants. He's been getting shit on so much, it's only fair. He needs this. I need this. But I guess the only other Immortal fan out there was Satan, so my prayer went unanswered. I aced the speech test though, so maybe the Big G just had better prioritization than me. But this was the moment where I couldn't take it anymore. I felt like he was my abusive boyfriend. I always thought he would change for the better, but every week he kept disappointing me. So I stopped being an Immortal fan and moved on with my life. Luckily, my replacement GOAT was introduced in the same episode, so it all worked out. But you know what? If you're still a fan of the Immortal, that's okay. At the end of the day, there's still something to be said about a man who always gets back up after being knocked down. He may not be the strongest, he may not be the smartest, he may not be the kindest, but no matter the odds, no matter the circumstances, he always keeps fighting and never gives up.
No, I'm done. I've given this world enough.
Plop, plop goes the poop right down the toilet. I pooped in the toilet, I pooped in the toilet. Plop, plop goes the poop right down the toilet. I pooped in the toilet, I pooped in the toilet. One poop, two poop, three.
Why would the writers make him do this? They're fighting so that they can watch Immortal's fan base die. Think, Robert. He'll get outclassed by every fragile, insignificant being on this show. He'll live to see his reputation crumble to dust and blow away. Everything and everyone on this show will be stronger than him. What will he have after 5 more seasons?
Duplicate, dude. He'd still have Duplicate.
Do I even need to explain why this is Immortal's worst season? He dies twice, causes the Guardians to split, stays an asshole even when he has no reason to be one, and loses every fight he's in. This just isn't the same character that we saw at the beginning of the show. He's degraded into nothing but a punching bag for whoever happens to be on screen with him. He was already getting hate after season 2, but this really solidified his place at the top of Fraud Mountain. And from this point on, he's effectively out of the show. The only time he's even mentioned in season 4 is when Omni-Man calls him a fool. The guy isn't even on screen and he's getting shit on. And that's it for the Immortal. Minor spoilers, but he comes back for a bit in the comics, but he doesn't really do anything all that important and he gets zero focus, so this is how the character is going to be remembered. As either a punchline for the question who can beat Thrag, or a candidate for the worst character in the show. But I guess that's just his role in the series. He's meant to be the Eve's dad of the superhero world, not a person with their own struggles and desires, but an obstacle for the actual protagonists to overcome. Think about it. Every action he takes is meant to conflict with our main characters. He's distrustful of Nolan in episode 1. He's the catalyst for Mark questioning Nolan in episode 7. He spends all of season 2 casting doubt on Mark, and he spends all of season 3 messing up the Guardians, at least when he's not being an active antagonist. Maybe I just misinterpreted what he was meant to be.
I think people are just mad that he and Kate are getting their happy ending in the same episode that Rex and Ray did not get their happy ending. Yeah. I think there was clearly a favorite couple amongst those. And
yeah, I do see a lot of Immortal and Kate hate, and I don't get it.
What? This was you trying to make the Immortal likable? On the same level as Rex Splode? That guy got an entire multi-season character arc, several significant dubs by himself, and a self-sacrifice so good that it made people forget that he cheated on Eve 2 seasons ago. You rewrote an entire character, brought them back from the dead, just so Rex could have a 3-dimensional love interest. I know I said it before, but it bears repeating. The only time Immortal and Kate interacted before she died was off-screen shower sex!
So I move in a week at the time of recording this, and so me and my friend, who is also helping with this, don't have time to make another transition for this part, so... Y'all ever heard of Party Crashers? I don't want to just criticize other people's work without offering my own alternative. As Teddy Roosevelt once said, complaining about a problem without posing a solution is called being a bitch-ass baby. So how can we make this character more likable? How can we fix the Immortal? Well, for starters, let's set some ground rules. We have to work with what's given for the most part. We can do new things, but we have to set them up in advance, and more importantly, we have to take away something else to make time for it. We also have to justify it narratively. It has to make sense within the story of Invincible. We can't just get rid of an entire Mark episode and make it about Immortal. His character has to relate to the main characters in some way. First off, we're going to make no changes to Season 1. This is easily the best version of Immortal, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. For Season 2, we gotta drop Dupla Immortal. Like I said earlier, it hurts both of the characters in it, and the show never actually develops the relationship anyway. If you really want to keep it, at least add a scene or two of them going out on a date or bonding during a mission or something. You can cut the robot monster girl stuff to make time for it anyway, because that shit should have been resolved in a single episode instead of being dragged on throughout the entire season. Also, when Immortal says that he'll be watching Mark, have that be more than just an empty threat. Have Mark hanging out with Amber and he gets a call from Cecil but ignores it to spend time with his girlfriend. Then Immortal shows up and forces Mark to go deal with the problem. It would probably work best for the fish people thing, but you could put it anywhere, and it doesn't have to add much runtime. Plus, it lets the Immortal seem like more of an active presence in the story while working with Mark's struggle to balance his hero life with his normal life. For the Sequid fight, instead of Invincible taking the device away from the Immortal, have it be the other way around. Robot instinctively gives it to Mark, Immortal shoves him away to do it himself, and then Mark takes it back with the whole "I'm faster and stronger than you" shtick. It works better this way because Immortal is more clearly in the wrong, and it shows that he's struggling to cope with the fact that he's not the strongest hero anymore. Yeah, I know that Omni-Man was already stronger, but he didn't really know that at the time. Plus, he worked with Nolan for 20 years, whereas he's more suspicious of Mark here. During Kate's funeral, since they're not a couple here, have Immortal talk about how he wasn't expecting to lose another Guardian so soon. That should be why he's so angry in Season 2. He feels like he let the original Guardians down and that he needs to protect the new Guardians. It gives him a better motivation to be so ready to fight Alan, even after knowing he's not Omni-Man. When he's fighting Alan, he should be saying something along the lines of protecting them to reinforce this. Then let the rest of the season play out the same. You can still have Kate show up to Immortal's cabin and have that inspire him to rejoin the Guardians, but now it's more about how he didn't actually let the team down instead of him having a sweet tooth for the duplicate. Season 3 should have Immortal be more mellowed out in general. He shouldn't turn into a complete softie, but he shouldn't be yelling at everyone for no reason. He also shouldn't be losing off-screen to Doc Seismic. Just have him and the rest of the Guardians be fighting some other bad guy that demands their full attention. The Sequiz, anyone in the Order, Omnipotus, hell, make up someone new to fight if you have to, just don't let them all get murked for no reason. It doesn't have to be focused on, just let Donald say it while Cecil talks about how to deal with Seismic. That way, Mark and Eve are still the last heroes available to fight the Doc, since no other superhero team could stand a chance. This also helps to elevate the Guardians above the rest of Earth's heroes, which is important for Episode 2. In Episode 2, instead of Immortal barely even arguing his case, have him say that since he's worked for Cecil for 20 years, he knows to trust him, and that even if he hasn't explained it yet, he must have a good reason to fight Mark. Then, when the team starts arguing, have Rex be talking about leaving the Guardians, and then Immortal explodes on him specifically, blaming him for the team's failure while he was away and for almost getting Kate and Ray killed. Then Rex says he's leaving and everyone picks their sides. Immortal still comes off as kind of a bad leader here, but at least he has a better argument than just,
Yo, dudes, the Guardians are pretty chill. Maybe you could, get out or something.
It also makes Duplicate's decision to stay seem more genuine since she's convinced by Immortal's arguments rather than by his cock. For the Mauler fight, do something similar to the Doc Seismic fight. The Guardians actually fight the Maulers this time, but it's revealed that the twins they're fighting are just a diversion for the real twins attacking the nuclear silo. The diversions can't be actual Maulers, obviously, since you can only have 2 at a time, but they could be robots or holographic disguises of other villains, or anything, really. They can get beat off-screen so they don't waste any unnecessary time, but just reveal that they're the diversion, and then have Mark and Oliver go stop the real threat. That way, the Guardians are still shown to be competent fighters, but that they're being stretched thin by the split. Episode 4 would be a simple change, but the hardest to fit in. The actual plot for the King Immortal stuff stays the same, but take away some of the scenes with Dropkick and Fight Master to save time. They're only really there to set up the plot. Be honest, did you remember their names before I said them? Can you even tell me which one is which? Didn't think so. Now here's the important part. After Mark gets back to Eve, she wants to go on a date or something, but he says he needs to take care of something first. He goes back to Guardians HQ and actually tells Immortal about the future. They talk about trusting each other for a bit, and the conversation shifts to why Mark fought Cecil. At this point, Cecil teleports in and tries to subdue Mark to prevent him from psyching out one of his last heroes. Immortal puts 2 and 2 together and realizes that Cecil knew the truth about Omni-Man the whole time. He freaks out, vows to never work for Cecil again, and flies off. Cecil justifies what he did and then leaves. This accomplishes 3 things. It patches up Mark and Immortal's relationship into one of mutual trust and respect. It feeds into the Mark versus Cecil dynamic of the season, and it gives Immortal a much better reason to quit. He's not fully done being a superhero just yet, but he no longer trusts the man he's worked with for decades. For Episode 7, we need to remove the Cahor scene, which is a shame because it's pretty funny, but it leaves room for another scene. At Guardians HQ, Immortal tells the team he's leaving, they're saying their goodbyes, and then one of the Invincible variants attacks, forcing Immortal to fight with his team one last time. Then, when cutting back to them later, let it play out like it did before, but instead of Immortal dying when no goggles Mark locks in, he just loses an arm. Then he wraps his remaining arm around the variant's head and snaps his neck. It doesn't necessarily add anything to his character, but come on, he deserves to kill one variant. Then another one can fly in, kill him, and Darkwing can sacrifice himself to take out that variant. It's just a much better showing for the Guardians overall. Finally, in the hospital, he'd be without Duplicate, and Donald would ask him if he'd like to rejoin the Guardians. Immortal refuses, and I can't stress enough how important this is, but he says, I can't help this world anymore. Instead of him leaving because he's a selfish prick, he's leaving because he feels like he's not strong enough to protect Earth anymore. It works together with his sense of inferiority to Viltrumites that King Immortal brings up. And you could end it there, have him stay retired with a much less tainted record, but I honestly think you could keep him around. When Alan and Nolan come back to Earth to recruit people for the Viltrumite War, I think Immortal should be a nice addition to the team. You need to have it be just Alan since he wouldn't believe Nolan, but you could make it work. Immortal doesn't want to go because he thinks he'll be useless, but Alan could play up the whole King of Space thing he was joking about in Season 2. Mark could help convince him if it's not enough. For those of you saying he's not strong enough, let me remind you that A, he's killed a Viltrumite in this rewrite already, B, Tech Jacket and Oliver were pretty useless, but they got to stay, and C, the show doesn't really care much about power scaling. It's a flaw, but it can be used to our advantage here. Then, instead of Tech Jacket being Shocked Omni-Man's on the ship, let that be Immortal. Nolan is going through his redemption arc this season, and episode 5 is where he really has to deal with the consequences of what he did on Earth at a personal level. Debbie reminds him of what he lost as a human, but Immortal could be used to remind him of what he lost as a superhero. It just makes sense. He doesn't need to be important in the fights. I'm not asking him to solo conquest or anything. He just needs to be there.
This is the end.
I know I haven't exactly painted the best picture of Robert Kirkman here, but I really do love his writing. I mean, I wouldn't be talking about his IP for this long if I didn't. It's just that he's written so many characters amazingly, so it makes the bad ones stick out even more. And of those bad characters, Immortal sticks out because he started off so well. He had it all. Great voice acting, plot relevance, the perfect amount of screen time, and bite-sized lore that could be expanded upon later. It was a real shame to watch all of that vanish in the span of 2 seasons. The greatest hero on Earth became nothing but a measuring stick to show the audience how threatening the big bad of the week was. He could have been so much more. His story could have been one of the best in the show. His legacy could have been